Hey there and welcome. This is a short guide to help teachers better understand what standards and benchmarks are calling for as they go about developing aligned learning goals, instructional strategies, assessment activities, and evaluation criteria. It's important to do this unpacking work with your teacher colleague friends, even if those colleagues don't teach the exact same benchmarks and curriculum that you teach. This builds consistency and continuity within your school, which benefits students. Standards and benchmarks have become an important tool in Minnesota in the context of helping teachers decide what it is that students need to be able to know and do. Standards and benchmarks usually contain clear description about learning targets. They do not contain specifics about curriculum, instructional strategies, or assessments. These ideas are left to the expertise of the teacher. Knowing the learning targets allows teachers to make good choices about the curriculum and instructional strategies that will best serve students, as well as the assessment activities most likely to efficiently and effectively show what it is the student has learned and what they may need to learn next. Like most states, Minnesota uses both standards and benchmarks. Standards usually articulate concepts in a broad and general way, while benchmarks more specifically describe what students should know and be able to do. Benchmarks are usually the place where teachers can find specific information about aligning learning goals, instructional strategies, assessment activities, and evaluation criteria. Education guru Rick Stiggins has promoted the idea that learning really happens in one of four types: knowledge, reasoning, skill, or performance product. This is a useful tool for teachers as they go about aligning learning goals, instructional strategies, assessments, and evaluation criteria. Stiggins makes connections between these four learning types and verbs or action words. Notice some examples that may be useful to you on this screen. For knowledge, words such as explain, describe, identify, and so on. For reasoning, verbs such as analyze, discriminate, compare, contrast, and so on. For the learning type of skill, verbs such as assemble, operate, use, and so on. And finally, for performance product, verbs such as design, develop, produce, or create. When unpacking or more fully understanding what a benchmark is calling for, it may be useful to identify the components of the wording of the benchmark. This can happen in three steps. First, circle the verb that the student will need to be able to apply. Second, label the learning type of that verb. Is it knowledge, reasoning, skill, or performance product? And the third step, underline the concepts the student will need to understand. Let's take these ideas one at a time. The first step in unpacking a benchmark is to identify the verb or action word that the student will need to be able to apply. In this benchmark, describe the characteristics of a variety of genres and musical styles such as electronic, jazz, opera, and gamelan. The action word or verb is describe, and so we've circled the word describe. The second step in unpacking a benchmark is to label the learning type of the verb that we first identified and circled. Is it knowledge? Is it reasoning, skill, or performance product? In this benchmark example, describe the characteristics of a variety of genres and musical styles such as electronic, jazz, opera, and gamelan. We had identified the verb or action word as describe, and we circled that. That is a knowledge learning type, and so we have put a K to represent knowledge prior to that benchmark. The third step in unpacking a benchmark is to identify and underline the concepts that the student will need to understand and use. In this example, describe the characteristics of a variety of genres and musical styles, such as electronic, jazz, opera, and gamelan. Those concepts are characteristics of a variety of genres and musical styles, and so we have underlined that phrase. Some benchmarks include curriculum ideas, and those curriculum ideas usually follow the phrase such as. In this case, such as electronic, jazz, opera, and gamelan. These are merely suggestions and are not a requirement of the benchmark. Words that follow the word including describe content that is required. For example, in this case, identify the elements of music including melody, rhythm, harmony, dynamics, tone, color, texture, form, and the related concepts. Those are requirements of the benchmark. Here's a formative assessment for you. Notice the middle school dance benchmark. Analyze the meanings and functions of dance, such as dance as art and dance as entertainment. Apply the 3 steps. First, identify the verb or action word and circle that. Second, decide what that verb or action word is calling for as far as the learning type. Put a K in front of the benchmark if you think it's knowledge, an R for reasoning, an S for skill, or a PP for performance product. Third, find the concepts that the benchmark is calling for and underline those. Once you've applied the 3 steps, talk to someone in the room about what you have done and explain why. How did you do? In this particular example, analyze the meanings and functions of dance, such as dance as art and dance as entertainment. The action word or verb is analyze, and so we have circled the word analyze. Analyze is a reasoning learning type, and so we have placed an R in parentheses prior to the benchmark. The concepts that are being called for are the meanings and functions of dance, and so we have underlined that phrase. This benchmark also has a such as dance as art and dance as entertainment. How did your explanation go to your colleague friend? Would that explanation be useful in developing aligned learning goals, instructional strategies, assessment activities, and evaluation criteria? I hope these steps in unpacking a benchmark are useful to you. Don't forget to do this work with your teacher colleague friends, as that collaborative consensus building is extremely important. All right, I think you're ready. Identify a benchmark that's critical to your teaching and get unpacking.